Our first reader is James Gomber. Okay, take it away, James. Thank
Thank you.
you.
I'm sorry. Is there a James Goldberg here? I'm Jim Gronvold, and I'd like to read for mostly from my latest collection, Sphere Spun. I'm going to start off with a poem about I used to work in a
No,
homeless shelter in Boston, and one day we took some of our guests out for a day fishing trip. This is about that. Dayboat. Murray and I took a full van of land-stranded, streetwise fishermen from their Boston shelter, the Pine Street Inn, for a day of fishing on a boat out of Lynn. We left the dock on an even crawl, but farther out, the sliver of shore would rise and fall below the horizon. I was mesmerized by the rolling motion until a crew member ran to the rail and spilled his guts on the heaving ocean. Then one old joker from our jolly band told me I looked crypt keeper pale. And that was the straw that tipped the scale. But between waves of seasick eruption, I saw whales rise and breach. One even passed just out of reach. And I swear the eye I saw me, which is why I no longer drop hooks in the sea. And this is called Hello. If animals spoke just a word or two, maybe hello or how do you do, would we all be vegetarians or deplorable vulgarians? If fish asked us about our bait, would we engage in thoughtful debate? I wonder what words birds would translate to communicate with human herds. And this one is about, just before COVID, I was fortunate enough, the Seventh Quarry Press in Swansea, Wales, launched a collection of my poems, and I was able to read in the house that Dylan Thomas was born in and lived in until his 20s, and where he started many of his wonderful poems. While there, I visited his room, of course, and you can do that too. This is called Dylan's Room. You can stand in the echo shadow of his spark, by the window where his words learned to fly, in the room that held dreams of sky, and the door that led to doors to the park, where the boy who grew to a man of words borrowed the wings of the birds he knew and rose on the beats of his joy. This one's called Earth. Our rolling home spins in an endless expanse of wheels within wheels with wheels of their own. The birthplace of our existence, a speck afloat on the seas unknown, a drop in an ocean floating on oceans where I have felt stars at my feet and echoes of you in my own heartbeat. And this from Star Thistle. Oh, Destiny. Yeah, especially I chose this in light of this week of Juneteenth. Diversity. The sea in the cloud, in the rain. the field in the stalk, in the grain, the they in the you, in the me, all sing the truth of diversity. We water, soil, and sky, spun and spinning, ripple to ripple, falling as we fly. We sons and daughters, leaves and bark, sand and spark, silence and cry. We crumbs and crust, iron and rust, reason from chaos and dreams out of dust. We creatures who learn to walk upright and light fires against the night, now launch ourselves into flight and read the history of starlight. And this last, well, probably the last, depending on the time, I'm sorry, I haven't kept it, is about artificial intelligence. Robots might rhyme in the digital future when programs refined to write and recite by algorithm and memory byte have surgically mined our literature for data collection and word selection to recombine selected expressions into a semblance of lucid connections. But we will still feel what we feel and live the lines our own words fill. Thank you. And do I have time for just one short, quick little, this is called an answer. This is one answer to the why and how, the only clue that life need allow. These moments few, this here and now. Thank you. I'll mute.
Oh, it's okay. Great poems, James. Thank you for being so rhythmic. Your poems are beautiful. They are so metric. You know, it sounds like you are formally trained in very yeah.
I'm not.
They're very rhythmic. They're beautiful to the ear, and then I like all the themes that you have. Very earthly at the same point. And I applaud you for being such a great and so patient for for this starting point that we just got a little bit carried away by the technical hiccup. Okay.
I can imagine. I want to thank you for putting it all together and dealing with those chemical hiccups. I couldn't have done it.
Okay, thank you, James. And then the next reader is Tova Green. Tova, take it away.
Thank you, Anne. So my name is Tova Green, and I am reading from San Francisco Zen Center, where I live. And I want to thank friends and family who are here, and all of you who are here to listen this afternoon or evening, depending where you are. I'm going to share 3 poems I wrote during different times during the year of COVID-19 and 2 new poems. Still, quarantined after traveling in March, I move into 2 rooms with no art, no rugs, a single bed, 2 folding chairs, a small square table becomes my desk. Masked friends bring 3 meals each day. They knock, leave the tray, dash away. Confined to a screen for connection, I find a way out. A long window opening to a fire escape. I raise the glass frame, step over the sill, sit on the metal platform 3 stories above the ground. My isolation dissolves. I'm a cloud looking down on myself, a sparrow on the small iron shelf, singing. And if you live in the Bay Area, you will remember this time. After 10 years of dangerous air, I lace my lavender sneakers, tie the strings of my mask, put phone and keys in a deep pocket. A clear sky draws me outside like pollen pulls in a bee. For days I've checked purple air, kept windows closed, not dared to leave home. I follow my favorite path up Page Street, left on Buchanan, right on Waller, with its bright sidewalk gardens and three-story Victorians. I breathe deeply for the first time in days, after the ashen haze turned the sun red, the moon orange. How many redwoods, deer, owls, horses, humans were cremated in the hellish blaze. I turn onto a street that dead ends at Dubose Park and lower my body to the ground, resting my back against the rough bark of an oak with a wide trunk. My eyes feast on the parade of dog walkers, couples holding hands, mothers wheeling baby buggies. Most are masked. 7 months plagued by the pandemic, I seldom see people so carefree. Aware of my singleness, I might feel lonely were it not for the oak. I sit with no sense of time passing. A woman wearing red jeans comes close, holding a piece of paper. It's a watercolor she's painted, a portrait of me under the oak, the long shadows of its branches like arms. This is for you. She quickly walks away before I can ask her name. My window rattles. What will it be like? The first kiss on a cheek, the first embrace. This week, the anniversary of a year of restraint, touching only the clothing I pull on in the morning, the kettle, a serrated knife, my pen, keys. This March morning, wind rattles the panes of my kitchen window. Through the glass, tender leaves quiver on a sycamore's slender branches. What will it be like to walk up Page Street without a mask, to smile at neighbors, see their smiles? How will it be to hold Noah, born the first day of this year? His parents trust there will be a future he will live into. I spread avocado on a homemade sesame bagel, hear the caws of a crow, the hum of a plane. The city awakens. We gingerly emerge from quarantine. Last year we drew in. This year we will slowly open. So I spent last week at a poetry retreat with Ellen Bass and Marie Howe, two of my favorite teachers. And these poems are quite fresh. So this is the first time I'm sharing them, other than with people in the workshop. Homage to Eric Dolphy, 1928 to 1964. Eric Dolphy, why did you die so young? How was it that I never knew your name or your music? The spells you cast with your bass clarinet and alto sax until long after your 36 years ended. Now, on retreat in a one-room rented cottage, I listen to you play a tune called Naima. You begin alone on your saxophone. Cascades of notes spill into the air like early morning bird calls, shrill squeaks, slow, low hums, snatches of melody. unpredictably. A bass drum enters with a steady beat, supports the syncopation of your sax, and I'm swaying to the B-dop-dop, trill, da-do-dop-da. My feet high-stepping, turning, hips swaying, set free, my body unkinks, shakes, loosens constraints of a year living with pandemic fear. Eric Dolphy, I'm moving with you. With that song, I could almost sing along with you until the warbler-like trills, hawk-like squawks, finally a deep, mellow, held note. And this poem is called After 21 Years of Zen Center Life. And it's with gratitude to a poem by Natalie Diaz called These Hands, If Not God's. So after 21 years of Zen Center life, just between you and me, I'm tired of being a monk, sick of wearing black, gray, subdued blues, voluminous robes with sleeves that catch on everything. Don't tell the abbot. I'm tired of the wake-up bell in the dark, following the same schedule day after day, chanting in Japanese on a single tone. I want to let my voice soar, croon like Nina Simone. Please keep this quiet. I'm through with celibacy, with sleeping alone in a single bed. Instead, let me follow the scent of your blossoming honeysuckle. Let's step into the rivering of a Natalie Diaz love poem, into swirling water where neither you nor I know how to swim, where nouns become verbs in unraveling sentences that have no ends. So thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Tova. It's so beautiful, you know. Um, there's so many details in your poems and in your background. I really admire your background as the Zen Buddhist priest. Uh, there's so much to learn from you. Actually, we all, and from what you mentioned, the human cremation, uh, the Natalia Diaz poem. She is one of my favorite poets. So well done. Thank you so much for your reading, and thank you for your patience. Thank you. And next one, we have Maxine. Flasher-Duzgunes. Maxine, you can take it away. Thank you for fixing our problem today as well. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I apologize, everybody. We ran into some problems. So I am the host as well as a reader this afternoon. And yeah, my name is Maxine. I'll be reading just a few poems from a little collection I've been putting together. I'm wanting to title it On Casting Airplanes. And a lot of these poems fall under the theme of air travel and unrequited travel and distance and departure under those themes. This afternoon, the rain interrupts your dance, but does it really? You storm shitless for the camera, a lifeboat already drowning, but the rescue still worth it. You attempt to mourn something lost, even if it's too far away to see. The forest hears you, stomp on its floor, implore to the loose leaves for a wind chime to appear and serenade you, even if there's no wind. You are at peace with being silly and not producing anything. In this moment, you make nothing of except yourself inside of it. A sick dog drags his legs through a graveyard of downed stumps. He inches toward water, Despite the droplets falling, you grace them with your arms. The dog finally arrives, but the tin bowl is empty and he swaggers away. You stay but don't know what to make of the dying when you live so solidly apart from suffering, until one realization sparks your consciousness awake, but blue, restless, never a song, but always a poem. You can only write the pain, you cannot breathe it out, so it lingers. A dream, you like to call it, even if it hangs out all day and all nights in that everlasting state, dovetailed and pink of unflight. Yesterday, I had this feeling that the city was resilient. The restaurant doors locked or boarded, chairs upended, flyers 6 months out of date. You were close by. Through the gridded fog, I crossed over hills and ocean. I did wonder what you were up to a mile down. Why didn't you call? I feel like I'm in the midsections of everyone's life right now, reading emails and hoping someone is out there. Where were you when the smoke covered our words, locked in a further state of not knowing? It's better if we just stop, right? Than keep drifting this coastline in search of our own hearts. I wish I could tell you how many times I've cried. The rain, just a cheesy metaphor for what goes solidly down my cheeks, a million things per second cascading. I wish I could tell you how much it hurts to sing, ooey gooey, the words through the blur of butter and sadness, a swelled thickening, baked too long, but still coincidentally runny. I wish I could tell you what it means to throw yourself against something you love, bittersweets and etching chew marks on your heart, a failed meal yet presumably delectable upon your reaching for it. I wish I could tell you you're like this highway of exit signs, but you don't slow down to let me leave. And when my speed hits 180, it's too late to say, remember me? Because you don't even try. I wish I could tell you how you remind me of an airplane, of a dream that sailed airborne, of a cross tilted to reflect having really gone nowhere, my nowhere man. If we counted the stars, you'd reach a limit, but I wouldn't, infinite and beyond your thousands of gazes, until past, do us past, your passing, my remainder, zero, if not evermore. The world doesn't want to be understood. It wanes to a starry night. It rains to an overcast sky. It burns to what is blue, freezes toward gray, a golden becoming morning drink. It tumbles like sycamore, a leaflet of something here yet gone. A gaze easily turns sideways. A smile becomes a banana. Goodbye is no longer special. It sours the tongue, so you decide to spit it out. Start over. Screw it. Tomorrow will offer the hello today didn't afford. You rub your neck at midnight, hoping someone will come up behind you, relieve what doesn't stop pushing, present a glass of wine for a sore throat. And this is the last poem. I found a watery reflection in the sweet screen, dusty skaters atop the glass. A cloudy destination branches its fingers through sunlit keyholes, approachable via none. The quiet passes over an airplane's descension. It rests in between moons and before the rain, causes a reconsideration of everything. Would you reconsider? If we met under another sky, if the letters we wrote were tinted pink instead of blue, you ask the other meaning of blue. How sadness isn't enough to describe, will perhaps never be enough. The ocean blue, but unsailed, your heart stranded in the lyric where the water has dried your parched anchor and wind steals your breath, all for one gaze outwards to the point of dark meeting light, the sherbet sunrise of starting over. If you could start over, you might take me. A poem written on each sail, directing us northwards, never furled except at nightfall, when the words travel to your lips and the harmony becomes one dance we share before tipping lazily into the shore, quietly and everlasting. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. I really, I think there's so many things that it could be the poet herself. It could be there's so many possibilities. The intimate, significant another. But the shoe marks on your heart, a glass of wine for the sore throat, all these things that's so conversational that you're constantly pulling in and out in the scenery. It's just overwhelms. It's so beautiful. Really applaud you. Okay, and then thank you for the reading. It's so beautiful. And then the next reader, Harita Kalvai, our youth ambassador, youth poet ambassador. Take it away, Harita.
Hello, everyone. So these poems are part of a portfolio that I've been putting together for around a year. And when I turned it in for an English final, it was informally titled 16, the number, not the word. Lifetimes. Shell-shocked, seasick, searing thoughts, a white light in a dark room illuminates the brazen pathway to a better sense of understanding. And the misunderstood hold their breath as they struggle to swim along the dimly lit cobble. There's no destination like clarity, and for some, there's no destination at all as they swim along the burning river, reveling in their own brewing thoughts. And they yearn that one day, whenever it may come, their path will end with blissful apprehension. Solitude. The air is thick with petunia smell and hot coffee, and there are no voices I can hear, thank goodness, because trivial people are such a bore. Why bother when I could sit all by myself with a book in hand and a wool sweater on? Rain patters down softly and the window fogs, and there I sit all by my lonesome, this feeling ever so familiar. At least I have my pages upon pages of exciting adventures. It might seem sad to some, and yet it's normal for me to feel this way. After all, I'm by myself, but not alone. There's no one at home to read with me, or pour me coffee too, likewise. No one to adore petunias with. Just me and my friend, the dog-eared book, enjoying company at the dull bay window. An ode to wintertime baking. The kitchen is warm and feels like a blanket. The scent of Granny Smith in the air. I can feel the fabric on my oven mitts brushing against my excited hands. The apples, their bright green skins on the cutting board, drenched in spicy cinnamon and earthy molasses. A pie crust, buttery, flaky, not done, but then I can still taste its flavor on the tip of my tongue. It's a cold December day and there's snow outside, but the kitchen smells like autumn breeze. When the world doesn't open its palms and outside is not an option, this hobby is but a single escape. And even then, if I had a million others, I don't think I wouldn't have chose the comfort of wintertime baking. So the next poem that I'm going to read was part of an English assignment, and the week that I was supposed to submit it, I didn't know what to write about, so I ended up just writing a poem about having writer's block. It is an acrostic poem, which you won't be able to tell when I read it, but the first word of each line spells I have writer's block. I can't think of anything to write about today. However, I still have to turn in this assignment at 11:59. And acrostic poems, just like they entail, are in fact poems. Variety is of the essence when it comes to writing, after all, even though I already turned in one of these poems 2 weeks ago. When I sat down to write today, my mind drew a blank. Realistically, I felt frustrated and I did not know what to do, because I normally have all the words at the tip of my tongue, taking up space in my brain, eagerly ready to spill out onto paper. Rarely do I have to ponder or scour for the right words to use. But that's just the way it is, I suppose. Life does not always give you the lemons you need. Only you can grow them for yourself. Can I grow the words I need to write again, knowing I'll have to do this assignment all over next week? And this is the final poem. Lily pond fantasies and fantastical realities intertwine like barbed wire in the heads of young children. A chair is an abyss, the floor is an island, and the sky seems so blue until that one fateful day when children's spirits fade and their dreams carry away in the cold, harsh wind. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you, Harita. They are all very beautiful. Yeah, they are very, very nice. And especially, I have the similar feeling about when you talk about the writer's block. Don't we all have the writer's block? And then so many that we've encountered. I'm glad that you are bringing so much things, about the writer's habit. So thank you for your participation. It's wonderful to have you. Okay. And then the next reader, we have Robin Lee. Take it away. Robin, you are muted. Do you want to unmute yourself?
How about that? Am I good? All right. Thank you, Anne. I'd like to echo Harita's the salutary effect of deadline pressure. That can be very useful, and as can poetic forms. You know, they can come to your rescue. They can give you some something to pour your feelings into. So I have 8 to 10 minutes here. I hope you enjoy it. I'd like to start with a poem called Bookstore in LA. It's kind of a table setting kind of poem. And here we are, Bookstore in LA. Can you tell me, please, where I can find poetry? The clerk looks up and points down the aisle. 4 sections back, she says, just past mystery. If you hit fiction, you've gone too far. I'd like to read 3 poems that are my sort of COVID trilogy. I mean, there's some other poems, but these sort of make an arc. The first one's called Shelter Walk. I'm sure you've all seen on the pavement in front of you when you're taking a walk, somebody's written, drawn a cartoon or written a homily of some sort or another. This is one I saw very early in the pandemic, and so it's called Shelter Walk. This will make us stronger, the chalked asphalt assures. In my mind, I scribe a line, the right side of the O. Stranger, presto. This is from a dark phase of the COVID experience when people were not seemingly pulling together. It's called COVID Disapprobation. It's a triolet, speaking about forms. It's a nice sort of form. COVID Disapprobation. When the crematory caught fire, it lit up the dark. In the flashing night, overuse had melted electrical wire. When the crematory caught fire, some still refused to inquire if they could help with the larger fight. When the crematory caught fire, it lit up the dark in the flashing night. And this third poem is called Ghost Light. It's got a little epigraph, a little explanation of what a ghost light is. A ghost light is an electric light that is left energized on the stage of a theater when the theater is unoccupied and would otherwise be completely dark. It's one of those theatrical traditions, apparently. So, ghost light. When the empty theater is full of night, a ghost light remains. To brighten dark, custom commands this small delight. To hold and nurture, keep alight, the essence of life spark. When the empty theater is full of night, the ghost light remains to brighten dark. Another triolet. This poem is called Your Move. I've put air quotes around your air quotes. And this next poem, that's a short one. This poem is kind of odd. I derived it from a review in the New York Review of Books, talking about a book, of some sort or another. But hey, whatever works, right? This is called Poems from the Storm. A description of the sky, of clouds, or the moon, or what the birds are doing, and in which tree there was still a sense back then that the sky was the sky, ever-changing yet changeless. Now the sky must be terrifying. Storms, weather come from the sky. Weather is a boring conversation. I'm already getting bored. The two-rise perspective on the ruin we've wrought, the elegiac apples, the elegiac birds, the feeling of lateness, of too lateness, the feeling that the time for action has passed, that now is a time to mourn. Are we doomed or are we free? We can't change the past, and maybe we can't change the future either. But we do have to watch it happen. This poem, short poem, is called Hypothetic. Her hand passed softly before my lips while I was still speaking. In a moment, I was filled with the past. It was, in a manner, touching. There was such deep fondness, all hazards on leave. Three more, all short. This one is called The Power of the Thing. This is a pantoum, talking about forms. The rhyming lines drop down to the next stanza. Here we go. The Power of the Thing. The power of the thing, choked awake on dewy mornings, an appetitive machine, undeterred by its own warnings. Choked awake on dewy mornings, the universe unhinged, undeterred by its own warnings, easy mercy dims. The universe unhinged, an open-ended trail, easy mercy dims. Pandemonium wails, an open-ended trail, an appetitive machine, pandemonium wails, the power of the thing. And this poem, second last poem, is adapted from a post that a friend of mine put on Facebook, of all things. It was a nicely reflective piece, and I adapted a poem from it. It's called Julie's Poem. For a long time, I have woken up an hour before dawn and spent that hour listening to first the silence, then the sounds of the world waking. This morning, there is such heaviness and grief, events that need writing. And here is the moon to look at for beauty. And my final poem is another triolet, and it's called The Roadrunner and Me. I have been fortunate enough to be able to run on smoke. Back to the cliff on smoke, scuffed in air by my feet. I have been fortunate enough to be saved at the last minute, an escapee, to dance between raindrops, a lasting gift. I have been fortunate enough to be able to run on smoke back to the cliff. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Robin. It's beautiful. And it's wonderful to have a fellow finishing line press poet to read. You know, my first chapbook got published with Finishing Line Press. So I'm very privileged to have you here. And your short poems are very powerful. Everything about the sky, about raindrops, about, you know, there's so many power, especially in the ghost light. The ghost light poem is very good.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your reading. And take away next, our final reader today, Sharon Pretti.
There we go. Okay. Everybody. Thank you, Anne. Thanks so much for organizing this. And thanks, Maxine, for helping with the tech support. And thanks, everybody, for coming. So given it's Father's Day, I'm going to go ahead and read a poem I wrote about my dad shortly after he passed away. If day ever ended. When he returned, it was in a dream. Branches arcing over a back road. More swing than step. My father grinned as if he knew the name of each leaf, each jeweled bug, drawn to the heat of him. Shoes I'd never seen, a wave of wet earth staining their sides. I wanted to know what it was like, the heart suddenly stopping. Was it a bird stunned by window glass, a ship into ice? I wanted to know if he'd resisted, opened his throat against that deepening dark, his no punching a peak into the flat line. He turned to me as if he might speak, his blackberry breath, his indigo nails. Through his lips, a trill he'd perfected, simpler than any voice calling him back. I couldn't tell if day ever ended, his sleeves furled to the elbow, the sun strung from the sky, a kind of prize he'd reached for and won. I couldn't keep up with wherever he was headed, creekstones and striders, a place he could wade. I listened until he was gone, a tune I couldn't name, the grasses waist high and buzzing. And the next poem comes out of my work as a social worker. I work here in San Francisco at a long-term care facility, and many of the clients I work with have varying levels of dementia. And I get a lot of joy and meaning out of working with them. And this is a poem from my work life. Inside the Alzheimer's unit. She flutters, a translation of hands through her sleeves. The thinnest wind. Cloud shades taped to the windows. Once, she could read each tree, its angle and pitch, a branch's taper towards endpoint. Everywhere, she says. Chopin asleep in her fingers. I'm from everywhere. This afternoon strung with paper cranes. Anonymous leaves, carmine and purple and gold, tipped into her cup. the 2 o'clock refreshment. I'm still being born, she tells me. Hartford grainy, irretrievable, down the hallway we walk, arms in a braid. She's new here, the sapphire sky, seed small and remote, the date inked across a whiteboard. We walk everywhere, a bird and its shadow, her socks slow, exiled to her ankles. And the next poem I wrote after the many police shootings that our communities have experienced, and especially by people of color. It really got me thinking and made me more aware of the things I don't have to think about every day just because of the virtue of my skin color. So I have a poem in response to that. Upon hearing Jacob Blake Sr. interviewed about his son's shooting, walking beneath a canopy of old growth, the trail unmarked, a root system like ours, signaling when something is wrong. I might have been talking to myself inside a membrane of leaves, naming what starts as seed, then arcs outward into air. I had a toehold in the synapse between two rocks, where stream was supposed to be. I kept climbing, thinking something would change. My inherited voice, its rungs and slippage. I thought about blue, how much of it is meant to be carried. The basin beside a hospital bed, a cloth gown closing in the back. I equated silence with a clearing, mistook its edge as absolute. I thought about branches, how they arrive as shadows across the skin, sky as fragments through the holes of a shirt. I listened as long as I could. And the last poem I'll read is a love poem, and it's titled Hymn, and hymn as in H-Y-M-N. Hymn. Days earlier, we confessed nothing. Stripped of confusion, our bodies were vessels on the other side of wishing. An orange minute was all we had. Fools splashing words into our mouths, a small baptism. We drank up one another, syrup and singe, a gasping. We sank to the bottom of blue tall grass, slipped below the impurities of air. Our limbs liquid, cooled around each other. A bite of time was what we begged for, watching a fly pair explore us, their twitching selves, the residue left. What language could contain us? Bell sounds poured from our knees. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you. It's beautiful, Sharon. Your experience about dementia really is as a long-term care worker. It's frightening to hear what you said in your poem, because my dad suffers from dementia as well, and my brother and I, we are dealing with that right now at the moment. It's just right on spot on Father's Day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a great read. And then thank you everybody else. Thank you all the readers, James, Tova, Maxine, Harita, Robin. You know, you did such a great job today. And thank you for your patience with the technical hiccup. And a special shout out to Maxine, who helped us. And then also to Linda, who with Maxine was helping me to make today's reading so smooth, seamlessly after the technical thing. Okay. And have a